Reading from the book of Ezra, chapter 6, verses 6 to 12. Now therefore, Tattenai, governor of the province beyond the river, Shithar Bosenai, and your associates, the governors who are in the province beyond the river, keep away. Let the work of this house of God alone. Let the governor of the Jews and the elders of the Jews rebuild this house of God on its site. Moreover, I make a decree regarding what you shall do for these elders of the Jews for the rebuilding of this house of God. The cost is to be paid to these men in full and without delay from the royal revenue, the tribute of the province from beyond the river, and whatever is needed, bulls, rams, or sheep for burnt offerings to the God of heaven, wheat, salt, wine, or oil, as the priests at Jerusalem require, let that be given to them day by day without fail, that they may offer pleasing sacrifices to the God of heaven and pray for the life of the king and his sons. Also, I make a decree that if anyone alters this edict, a beam shall be pulled out of his house, and he shall be impaled on it, and his house shall be made a dunghill. May the God who has caused his name to dwell there overthrow any king or people who shall put out a hand to alter this or to destroy this house of God that is in Jerusalem. I, Darius, make a decree, let it be done with all diligence. It is said that history is but a tapestry woven by an unseen hand, where the threads of human effort and divine intervention intertwine in ways beyond our comprehension. An old story tells of a missionary who labored tirelessly in a foreign land with little visible fruit. Discouragement set in, and he often wondered if his efforts were in vain. But decades later, after his lifetime, the tide turned magnificently. Though he did not know it, the seeds he had sown had taken root, moved by the invisible life from God. Indeed, God often moves behind the scenes, fitting events into his own divine plan. This moment is glimpsed in Ezra chapter 6. Tattenai, the governor of the province beyond the river, sent a letter of grievance to King Darius regarding the construction of the temple. In counter, the Jews appealed to the original decree by King Cyrus, permitting them to return and rebuild the temple. They requested that a search be made in the royal archives to verify this decree. This was done, and in the citadel of Ecbatana, in the province of Media, a scroll written with the decree of Cyrus was found. This was no mere coincidence. The decree could have been misplaced or lost in time, but God's hand ensured that it surfaced at the right moment. What began as an attempt to hinder the work of God ultimately led to its furtherance. This turn of events reminds us of Proverbs 21:1. The king's heart is a stream of water in the hand of the Lord. He turns it wherever he will. Throughout history, God has directed the hearts of rulers to accomplish his purposes. Daniel, during exile, sought time to interpret Nebuchadnezzar's dream, and God granted him favor before the king. Nehemiah, burdened by the state of Jerusalem's walls, prayed earnestly before approaching the king. God moved the king's heart, granting him permission and resources to rebuild. In Zerubbabel's time, God worked through a pagan king, Darius, to not only affirm the decree of Cyrus, but to command that the temple's completion be fully funded by local taxes. What was meant to obstruct the work of God ended up advancing it. Tattenai and Shethar-bozenai's objections, recorded in Ezra 5:3, were turned on their heads. Instead of hindering progress, They inadvertently played a role in securing the resources needed to complete the temple. Romans 8:28 assures us of this principle, as we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. The builders, strengthened by the prophetic ministry of Haggai and Zechariah, continued their work despite the uncertainty. It took 4 years of diligent effort to complete the temple. This was no small undertaking, but as they remained steadfast, God moved behind the scenes, aligning circumstances and people to fulfill his purpose. When the work was completed, the people of Israel rejoiced and dedicated the house of God with great joy. This pattern of human effort and divine intervention is seen throughout Scripture. When Moses was a baby, his parents did what was within their power. They hid him for 3 months. When that was no longer possible, they placed him in a carefully prepared basket and hid him among the reeds of the Nile, near the place where Pharaoh's daughter bathed. They did their part, and God did what they could not. Moses was raised in the palace and later became the deliverer of Israel. Likewise, at the wedding in Cana, the servants filled the jars with water as instructed by Jesus. They could do that, but only Christ could turn the water into wine. This is the principle we see in Ezra 6. The people labored and God moved. They acted in faith, and he did exceedingly abundantly beyond what they could have imagined. Their obedience was met with divine favor, and their celebration reflected their recognition of God's hand in their success. They kept the Passover on the 14th day of the first month, in obedience to God's command, commemorating his mighty act of deliverance in Egypt. Let us always do what we can and trust God to do what we cannot. There are times when we face seemingly insurmountable obstacles, yet God is working behind the scenes, just as in the days of Ezra. Let us not be discouraged by opposition to our work for the Lord. Let us carefully examine the circumstances, even those that seem beyond our capacity, for there is a loophole to be found. Take heart, he is faithful. When we walk in obedience and do our part, he moves in his mysterious and often invisible ways. Despite the frustration of waiting for God when things appear to be closed, faith is required. We may not see or understand at the moment, but his timing and provision are always perfect. God is sovereign, and his purposes will stand. He is always at work, even when we cannot see him. Let us labor diligently, trust unwaveringly, and rejoice wholeheartedly, knowing that he who began a good work in us will surely bring it to completion. God bless.